Hey,
Here we
how are
go.
you? Woo! I like
Hi, Tammy.
the new pictures. How you doing, Nate?
You like the new
Yeah, down on the bottom.
I hope everyone else
Very
does
cool.
too.
Yes. Hey,
Hi folks. Welcome
welcome
to another
to
episode
yep.
of the Off-Road Insiders podcast. How you been, Tammy?
I hate to share this, but guess what is back
Um
in my Jeep?
Slim Shady.
Yes, I
You gonna make that
wish.
song?
I wish. The check engine light is back. The same PO6DD.
You just can't win with that check engine light.
No, I can't. And Daniel is like beside himself. So I did a little research, and I don't know, I haven't read too deep into it, but something about I think it's the oil pressure solenoid something something. I don't know. I got to read through it again. So we're
Solenoid. Okay.
yeah, I don't know. And but it's really really annoying to get to, and it's up in some little cavity.
Of course it is. It
Yeah.
always is.
So that I found that on a Jeep forum, JK owners. I don't know. This one guy, he had similar issues with me with his PO6 DD. He swapped out everything. He swapped out. He thought it was the wiring harness too.
Oh.
Um, and
Well, I mean, you did find a frayed wire and you
oh,
did fix it. So it's not
totally
like that was for nothing.
right, right.
So,
So the saga continues. So just keep staying tuned to the Off Road Insiders podcast, and we'll update you on Tammy's check engine light.
Tammy, you should have,
Day.
I'm telling
God,
you, you should have just got a TJ. You would have had
ah,
all the same problems. It just would have been easier to work on.
right. Well, Daniel's like, just take it. Let's just clear the code, quickly drive to the Jeep dealer and trade it in for a new JL. And I'm like, no, because then I'll have more problems. It could even catch on fire.
You really want a JL?
No.
It'd be 100 pounds heavier.
Yeah. No, I
Well,
don't want a JL.
maybe not 100 pounds heavier than yours because yours is modified, but
Yes.
stock. We learned that while researching for tonight's show
Yes,
that
we
the
did.
JL is actually heavier than the JK. I thought it'd be lighter because of the aluminum. I thought that was the whole
Right.
point, but apparently not.
Nope. No. So I was gonna calculate what day I am on of my check engine light. Was July 20th, 2020. So I'm gonna calculate.
Okay. So you're
But
gonna so you want like a whole count of how long.
how many
Wow,
days?
your check engine light is from like the COVID era. You'll
Yes,
be sad when it's gone.
I know.
uh,
So what have you been up to?
a couple things actually. So I still have these Dana 60s to build,
Right?
but their parts are expensive because it's bigger, stronger parts mean bigger, stronger price tags. Um, So I have this plan in my head of all the things that I want to buy for the axles because they're from two different vehicles, right? The gear sets don't match. So even if I wanted to, I couldn't slap them in their stock. Especially now that I've narrowed the Super Duty axle, that means I got to replace at least one of the shafts. Um, Anyway, anyone who's ever built axles knows exactly what I'm talking about. There's just so much to replace. So I had this grand idea that I was just going to like be real patient and save up for brand new parts for everything I was going to buy. And now I'm like, if I do that, it's going to take me a decade to build these
Right.
things. Maybe not a decade, but it'll be a while, especially since we have other priorities. Buying the truck, of course, cut into some available funds we have per month. And I'm like, look, if I just need to get these things done. So I've started poking around Facebook Marketplace and I actually found, so my plan is I was going to put selectable lockers front and rear. But the more I thought about it, considering this is an off-road only rig, I probably want a selectable in the front still, but in the rear, it doesn't matter quite as much. So I thought, let's get a Detroit for the rear. So I started looking around and I found a guy on Facebook Marketplace selling a Detroit that he bought, never installed, changed directions or whatever, and only $500. So
Oh wow.
so that'll be that'll be the rear locker. I just finalized a deal with him today, so as long as nothing falls through with that, I'll have a Detroit for the rear 60, which then means currently the rear has I think 32 spline shafts. I'm gonna up it to 35 spline, which is what this locker will do. That means I gotta buy shafts for that now, and then I gotta build the rear axle and get ring and pinion for it, and it's a lot. It's
It's like Santa's naughty and nice list. You know how long
yeah,
his list is? That's what
yeah.
your Jeep parts list is.
It'll be great when once it's done, right? Um, but I don't know. I want it to get done sooner rather than later for obvious reasons. I want to be able to
Mhm.
wheel the thing. The the axles that are in my Jeep are the factory 44 rear and 30 front from the TJ, and I've been wheeling them for I don't know 8 9 years at this point, and they're holding up. But I keep going through bearings on the rear of 44, and I think the bearings are going again. And I really don't want to replace them again because I know I have the 60. It's going to go in soon-ish. But now I'm going to be afraid to wheel it because the bearings are going, and
Yeah.
you know how it is, right? You have the
Yep.
replacement, you're building it, you don't want to put money into the old stuff, but if I don't put money in the old stuff, then I'm just basically not going to be able to wheel the Jeep, and I don't want to do that either.
I get how that goes for sure.
So I guess I need a lottery ticket or something to fund the
Fund our
winning lottery ticket, not just any
winning.
lottery ticket.
Right, a winning. The Mega Millions
Yeah,
winning ticket.
yeah.
So, I was gonna calculate myself how many days my check engine light, and then I'm
You
like,
kinda
"Oh," I
there's gotta be a
went
website for that, right?
I went to Perplexity AI, and I said, "How many days has it been since July 20th, 2020?" And it's 1,582 days of a check engine light.
Was it the same check engine light at the beginning, though?
No, the first one was the misfire cylinder 6.
Okay. So the
Mm,
light's been on, but it wasn't the oil pressure or whatever light.
no, it was
Okay.
misfire 6, I forget which code that was, and then we swapped the engine out, and then all of a sudden, the P060D showed up, which the harness made so much sense,
Yeah.
but so we'll see.
Yeah, it really did. No, and you fixed a problem, right? So it's
Yeah,
not like
yeah.
that was for nothing. I think I already said that. But, yeah,
Yes,
the other
there's a
thing I'm
question
doing
here
sorry, go
for
ahead.
you.
Oh,
Nate, do
yeah, I
you
see
wheel
videos
much
asked, "Do I
in
wheel
yeah,
much in the winter?" Not a ton, but
but at Roush
it's
Creek, there's a lot of wheeling going on, and
I'm
AOAA.
I'm not usually a snow wheeler. I mean, I when I was doing the off-road consulting stuff, I would wheel over the winter. But with the way the winters have been the last couple of years, there hasn't been a lot of snow anyway. So
Just cold.
just cold.
Mhm,
But yeah, the other neat thing I'm working on is so I got those lights that I talked about
mhm,
a couple shows ago. I wanted to get them put on the Jeep, so I built like a little hoop for the front bumper. I think I talked about this before, and I put the lights on it. Well, then I still had to cable them. So I got one of those aux beam switch panels and I got it all wired up. And as I'm wiring it, like, you know how these projects always snowball. I ended up cleaning up some wiring. While I was cleaning up wiring, I'm like, I haven't actually used my CB in about 4 years because
mhm,
everybody that I wheel with has switched over to GMRS radios. And I had the CB in the TJ center dash section where the HVAC controls are, the heater and the AC
mhm,
controls are.
mhm.
I had taken them out and moved them and then put the
Oh,
CB right in the dash. So it was mounted
wow.
like right below the head
Right.
unit. Well, one of the reasons I never removed it is because now I can't move the heating controls back because I had to modify the thing. The had to modify the tabs on the
Right.
controls, right? So I'm like, well, what do I do with this empty space now that I took the CB out? And so I don't see this done much in this industry. Maybe I'm maybe there's a reason for this, but I'm actually 3D printing a plate to go in place of
Oh, yeah.
where the CB or where the heat HVAC controls were. And then what I should be able to do is once I have the plate all designed, I should be able to put a hole in it for like I don't know I was thinking the pressure gauge for my onboard air, or I could put switches there, or I could
Uh-huh.
put like USB ports there for power. So all kinds of
Right.
options. So I started working on that this week, and if it works out well, I might do a video on that too, so people can see. It's like I said, I don't know, I've never really seen anybody 3D printing stuff for this hobby. It seems like such an obvious thing, right? But
Tanner, we interviewed him. He
yeah,
with TNT Customs. He has a 3D printer um just for this purpose, and
okay,
I think it's to he originally got it so we can make prototype parts, and
yeah,
then you can fit them to the Jeep to see if
hmm,
they work. But he makes some really cool stuff. He made a huge Lego minifig with
yeah,
it, and then there's the standard, the octopus. I don't know if you've seen the octopus with the legs that are, and then they have these dragons. It's like a standard program or whatever that comes with these 3D printers, I guess,
hmm,
that you see them everywhere. And I actually saw somebody at some vendor store or some, where was it? Oh, it was at, when I was in Las Vegas, it was at the Hoover Dam gift store. They were
hmm.
selling these 3D printed dragons. I'm like,
I
what an odd place to sell them,
I
but
have I've had the 3D printer for 3 or 4 years at this point, so I've done a
uh-huh.
lot of printing with it. Like I have this cool little thing on my desk here that I hold my pens in. It has
Uh-huh.
like little slots on the front for memory cards and whatever, right?
Right.
So that's the kind of stuff I do with it.
At
But
least your stuff is like useful.
exactly, well, that's primarily why I got it. Well, like 4 years ago, my daughter was like, "We should get a 3D printer." I'm like, "Okay, I wanted one anyway, but I couldn't really justify the money." But now that you're asking,
Right.
so we
It's
got
okay
one,
now.
and we've printed a bunch of little gadgets, and we do like figurines. Her and I have done a couple. I can't really grab it and with my headphones on, but I have one up there on my shelf that's a character from a cartoon that we watch. Um, I did one, and she did one, and we both painted them, and a fun
Fun.
little thing to do with my daughter.
Right.
But yeah, I do all kinds of stuff like that with it. But this is the first time I've tried to make something for the Jeep with it. We'll see how it turns out. Sometimes the plastics aren't very heat resistant, so we'll see if it holds up, you know,
Right.
in a hot Jeep. So I don't know. We'll see.
All right. Yeah. Video suggested USB ports.
Yeah, I looked up on Amazon. There's this cool little circular like USB jobby that has 3 ports in it, and you can hardwire it instead of plugging it into a USB port, which is what most of these things are. They're just extenders, but you can hardwire it to 12 volts, and then you could get your USB that way. So
Right.
I thought about doing one of those and maybe the air gauge on the other side because it's wide enough that I could do both. So we'll see how it works out.
Hey,
So yeah,
folks.
that's what I've been
Don't,
up to.
yep, don't forget, you can find us at offroadinsiders.com. And if you're watching us right now, either on SWB Crawlers YouTube channel or Jeep Mama's YouTube channel, go over to the Off-Road Insiders on YouTube and click the subscribe button. You can also catch us there. And if you click on the little bell, that will send you notifications every time we go live. So you're not going to miss out on our show. Typically, we do it every other Monday, but Nate and I have a life and we have jobs and we have family outings. So sometimes we miss a Monday here or there. But if you go over to YouTube and subscribe, you will get notifications when we're live.
Yeah,
And
next show, which will be the one right after Thanksgiving. I'll
yes.
be at that annual show that I'm at in Vegas, so I
Oh,
won't be able to.
you are a Vegas
I
like
know. You would think that I like it there.
I know,
I
and you
really
don't
don't.
like it. Right. Right.
Really don't.
Where are you staying this time?
I'll be at the Venetian because that's where the
Okay.
conference is.
Okay.
The
Is it
Venetian's a nice place to stay if you ever get a
uh-huh.
chance to stay there. I mean, every room I've ever been in there is like a suite. It's not just a hotel room.
I know, they're crazy. You
They're
could
enormous.
they're bigger than my apartment that I live
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, they are. They're crazy. But yeah, if anybody's in Vegas and you want to come to say hi, maybe we'll get lunch. Let me know.
Cool, cool. Um, So the next section of our podcast, Nate came up with this. It's a really good idea. We call it Community Corner. And it's just kind of random stuff happening in the overlanding, off-roading, Jeep adventure realm. And I just came across
It's
this
called a community,
article.
Tammy.
Yes,
It's in the name.
it's the community. Yes. Um, I'm trying to expand my language
Oh, okay.
realm. Actually, um, I see the word realm a lot because AI likes to use the word realm. That's one of
Oh,
their favorite words. There's certain words that it uses over and over and over and over again. Um, this Egyptian, he uh, was on an overlanding adventure, but he was doing it on his feet. Sometimes he'd hop on somebody's motorcycle. Sometimes he did it on a camel. People would give him rides. He's a 30-year-old Cairo native, and he overlanded 28,732 miles from Egypt across dozens of countries. And he did it without boarding a plane. And he's actually an Instagrammer. So I'm sure if you do some searching, you could find him. They don't have his name in this or his Instagram handle in this article, but there's a link to the article. It'll be in our show notes. It's pretty interesting. Omar Nok, Nok. He became a social media celebrity. He has more than 750,000 Instagram followers as he did this 28,000-mile trek across
I joked before the
Egypt.
show
And
that he did it Forrest Gump style.
yes, he did probably do it Forrest Gump style for sure.
Although
Yeah.
he ran the whole thing, didn't he, in the movie Forrest Gump?
Um, did
He didn't
he?
walk and hitchhike, he
Yeah, I
ran it.
think, yeah. He said the first day was the hardest when his father dropped him off at the Red Sea port of Savaga to board a cargo boat for Saudi Arabia.
Wow.
And because he was stepping into the unknown where he
Yeah,
didn't speak these countries' languages.
that's pretty unknown.
Yeah. So very, very brave fella. Very brave. I bet you he saw some amazing things.
Oh yeah, I bet. I bet. And that area of the world,
Oh, yeah.
I could only imagine how possibly unsafe it was for him.
Yeah.
Like how do you just walk your way through that part of the world?
Uh-huh.
Pretty crazy.
Especially when you don't speak the language,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? So very brave fella.
Yeah.
So community corner. There you go.
If anybody has any suggestions that come across anything cool for the community corner, feel free to hit us up. Offroadinsiders@gmail.com or hit either of us up on social media. We'd be happy to chat about it on the show.
Yep, for sure.
Cool. So tonight's topic, we're going to talk about aluminum versus steel. There's a lot of trade-offs between one material or the other. There's a lot of arguments online as to which is better, and I don't know. I think we're taking sort of a information-driven approach, not
Correct.
an opinion-driven approach. Although there will probably be opinions in here about what you and I have found that we prefer on one thing or another. So I guess just to sort of get things started, there's some pros and cons between aluminum and steel, and you've probably heard, you know, most of these if you've been around the block at all. But basically, the characteristics, right, of steel and aluminum. So steel is an alloy. It's made from iron and carbon, and usually there's various amounts of those things, plus maybe other things that are smelted within to get different types of steel, right? So there's like chromoly steel, there's stainless steel, but all of it starts out as basically iron and carbon, which becomes steel.
And when you're getting steel from China versus American steel, there can be a
Yeah,
big difference in that as
again,
well.
it comes down to the
Right.
impurities. It comes down to what it's smelted with. You've seen that steel, quote unquote steel, that feels very porous, right? That's I've heard a lot of people refer to it as Chinesium,
Mhm. Yeah. Yep.
right? So and that stuff is it's not nearly as durable as the sturdier stuff that you'll get in some more, and I shouldn't say just American made, but
I think
maybe
Canada,
non-Chinese products,
yeah,
right?
Canada's pretty good.
And that's not to say everything made in China is this crappy steel, but that's where I've seen it most commonly. So yeah, and steel obviously isn't a natural element that you can just go mine. Aluminum, on the other hand, it's lighter weight, it's durable. That is an actual like natural element, as far as I can understand. Although there is a process that it goes through to turn it into what you perceive as aluminum versus the way it comes out of the ground, right? You don't just
Mhm.
like pull it out of the ground and
Oh,
do
look, there's
things
a big
with it.
sheet of aluminum.
Yeah, right,
Right.
right. No, and it apparently uses some sort of a uh, an electric method that makes the stuff molten and then is refined out that way. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I learned that. I never really knew how aluminum was refined, but apparently it's an electric process, not a heat. I guess it's still heat, but it's not like a forged process like it
Right.
is with steel. So I thought that was pretty cool. Um, Steel is generally stronger than aluminum, although not always. There are some aluminum alloys that are stronger than steel. There's some steel alloys that are weaker than aluminum. Again, comes down to how they're smelted and whatnot. But aluminum is almost always lighter than steel. Like sheet for
Yes.
sheet, the thickness of a steel sheet, the thickness of an aluminum sheet, if they're the same, almost always the aluminum sheet's going to be lighter. But again, for that thickness, the steel sheet will usually be stronger, right? Um, Aluminum, generally, to get the same sort of strength, you need a thicker sheet, right? Or a thicker plate or a thicker tube or whatever it is that you're working with. And the other really big thing that I like about aluminum versus steel is its corrosion resistance, right? So, aluminum, it does corrode. We've talked about this in previous episodes where I was talking about those hinge liners.
Yep.
Um, if it's exposed to the wrong metal, or believe it or not, over time, just exposed to the elements, it does get like a white corrosion on it,
Mhm.
right? Whereas steel, almost immediately, like they
Rust.
refer to it as highly corrosive. And
Right.
anybody who's ever put an unpainted steel part on their Jeep knows this. Heck, you put a painted steel part on your Jeep and it's going to end up rusty,
Yeah.
right? But generally, as long as you catch it, take care of it, it's not going to cause permanent damage. Aluminum can pit, steel can pit, but aluminum usually isn't going to get that rot that you see with steel, right? If you leave steel untreated and if you don't fix the rust, it's going to end up eating
Getting
away at
worse.
steel over
Yes.
time, right? It'll like
And
get
you'll
flake.
start getting cracks and holes and
Right,
just disintegrates to nothing.
right. So like flat out material to material, those are kind of the pros and cons of steel and aluminum. Did I miss anything, Tammy?
You said the we wrote dissipates heat faster than aluminum does. Um,
Yep, aluminum is better at dissipating heat.
right.
It'll conduct heat better, I guess, is what it comes down to.
So if you think of it in terms of like on skid plates, um, corner armor, even wheels, steel is easier to fix, bang out, bang back into shape if you dent it with a rock or on the side of the wheels. You can bend it out. Aluminum, you can't do that as much. So I would say steel is more durable. Not necessarily. Is that, I think, not
Yeah,
stronger, but
this
easier
this
to
probably
repair.
this probably comes down to their chemical compound, right? But
Right.
aluminum, and this isn't always true on either side of the case, right? I've seen that more. Could you guys hear my wife
I
paging my kids?
no, I could hear something.
Anyway, um, that more porous steel sometimes has the same problem where it'll kind of tear or fracture
Mhm.
instead of bending. But
Right.
aluminum will usually do that. It'll tear, fracture, crack, right? Easier than steel does. Steel still can. I've seen it happen. You've probably seen it happen. Just look at a car accident.
Right.
But you'll be able to tell in a car accident. You'll be able to tell a steel body panel from an aluminum one based on how it crumples. Right. The aluminum ones will generally kind of tear a little more, which makes them harder to fix. Right.
And then just the pricing, I don't remember if
Yeah, and again,
you
not always
mentioned.
true,
Right,
depending on the
but
alloy and whatnot,
typically, yeah,
but typically, aluminum's gonna be more expensive than
right.
steel. It's just kind of the way it is.
And
Um,
lighter, probably,
yeah,
most part.
and the thing that confuses me with that is, we said it right at the beginning. Aluminum is a natural element, so you would think that would mean that it would require less refinement, and therefore it should be cheaper. I don't know why aluminum is more expensive. Does it have to do with where it comes from in the world? Does it have to do with how it's used?
Mhm.
There's an article I linked in the notes here from a steel distributor where they're talking about aluminum versus steel, and they say that aluminum is actually the most common metal on the planet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So why is it more expensive? I don't know. I'd imagine it could have to do with where it comes from, or maybe how it has to be treated once it's out of the
Right.
ground, or maybe another thing is aluminum can be used to conduct electricity efficiently, right? So a lot of the power cables that are running, like your actual, the power company's infrastructure. A
Mhm.
lot of that you would think it's all copper, but some of it, and maybe even a lot of it, is aluminum inside because it's cheaper to run aluminum than it is to run copper. So maybe because it's all tied up doing that, the price goes up because it's in higher demand. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, I know, we use Ryerson Steel, Norfolk Steel at TNT, and the prices fluctuate
Hmm.
all the time. Sometimes steel is more expensive than iron or, aluminum and vice versa, and I
Yeah,
was just trying to remember the representative was just in, and I can't remember now if she said aluminum was going down
it's
this
possible.
quarter. Yeah, I think she said it was going down.
Yeah, I
So
mean, a lot of it comes down to the economy, the stock market, the what's in demand at the moment,
right.
the places that it comes from, right? Like, where is it being refined, and are there tariffs in play? Are there shipping challenges? There's
And I
all
know
kinds of
if
stuff goes into
you're
play here.
yeah, if you're like where you are, Pennsylvania, where it comes in right there, Ryerson Steel is right near you guys. Our nearest location to get any of this stuff is not we're not close to these plants here in Wyoming, so it's gonna cost us more because 'cause it's gotta get shipped to us from wherever the nearest plant is for us. So it
We
depends
used
on where you
to,
live too.
we used to have one of the primary producers of U.S. steel right, like 30 miles from my house.
Mhm.
Bethlehem Steel was. I mean, they went out of business. Like, I was still in high school when they went out of business, if I remember correctly. Because I remember a bunch of Bethlehem Steel workers who were trying to re-educate so they could start new careers because Beth Steel closed, went to college with me because like these older guys in their 40s and 50s,
Right.
along with all of the 18-year-olds in college. I thought it was kind of interesting. Wanted to go learn these computer things, the newfangled computers. So yeah, but you're right. It has to do with where it's processed, where it's
Mhm.
made, where it's shipped from, where it's delivered, all that stuff. But you're right. Being closer to a coastal city will definitely lower the price on that. That and lots of other things, like fuel, for example. Fuel is
Mhm.
cheaper closer to the coasts than it is inland.
So one of the reasons we decided to do this topic is the new JLs.
Yeah,
Jeep decided
and
to
not just the jails. So many auto
other
manufacturers,
vehicles. Yeah,
so many of them
they're
have switched.
going. They're
Yeah,
trying
go
to
ahead.
do weight. They're trying to do weight reducing efforts on these vehicles to get better um, gas mileage, which helps their emissions,
Yeah,
um, that kind of thing. So we thought we would look into the JL versus the JK since they look pretty similar, and
yeah.
we were gonna do, like, a little comparison on are they really lighter?
Yeah, we were gonna shock you guys with the numbers
Yes.
of how light the JL is compared to the
Yes.
JK, and we were shocked when we looked up the numbers.
Right. Um, and uh, I don't think I think they improved some other things on the JL, and even though they
Yeah.
have aluminum parts, like the JL has aluminum doors, the hood, the windshield frame, some other body panels. The JL tailgate is made of magnesium alloy, and then their hinges have aluminum in them as well. And I got some price comparisons. The JK hood, which is um, the 2008 to the 2008,
18.
is it 18? That was 2
Yeah,
years? Yeah.
18 was the last year of the JK, if
Yes.
that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, so that's the earlier, I think that's the Gen 3. I think that is generation 3 of the Wrangler. Um,
Yeah, it would have been TJ,
yeah,
or would have been YJ, then TJ, then JK.
right.
So yeah, generation 3 of
So
the Wrangler.
the JK hood is 47 pounds. The JL hood is 22 pounds. So if you're going to compare hood to hood or doors to doors, the
Yeah.
JL is going to be lighter.
And if you've ever picked up a JK door, I've never picked up a JL door, but I
I haven't
understand
either.
they are much easier to manage.
Yeah. And that was another reason, is to make it more of an ease to remove the doors, because they
Yeah.
are a pain.
The JK doors are ridiculously heavy.
Yeah.
I mean,
S
for like the average motorist, right? The average owner, they're
Right.
they're they're a lot to manage. And
Yeah, I
let's
can't do it
face
by
it,
myself. No
it's your
way.
door, it's painted, you don't want to chip it, you don't want to drop it, you don't want to
Right.
like lose control of it trying to set it down on the ground. So yeah, making those lighter is going to improve the ownership, right? Like improve the lives of owners. How's that?
So if you're gonna compare JK steel door at 62 pounds to the JL door, the front ones, is at 47 pounds. So again,
Yeah.
there you have, those are less. But
Yep. But almost 20
Nate,
pounds.
yeah, Nate decided to go look at the JKU, which is
Yeah.
a four-door sport, the base model stock, versus the JL Sport.
Now I want to
Um, mhm.
caveat this, right?
Go
Because you and I
go
both looked
Yeah,
up these weights and we both found different numbers in different
correct.
places. All of them sort of trended the same, where the JK was actually lighter than the JL, but all of them had slightly different numbers to them. So I don't know where the numbers all came from, but they all kind of tracked in the same region. So, but these numbers came from a website called offroadingpro.com. I linked that in the description of the video and the notes for those of you listening podcast only. But they had all the models listed. They had the YJ and the TJ, and they had all the different trim levels and the Rubicon and the 392 and the everything, right, all the way up till the JL. And they had all the weights listed. And the so I compared the JKU Sport to the JLU Sport, figuring those should be similarly trimmed. They're both four doors. They both have similar drivetrains. I mean, maybe not. They didn't list the engine, I don't think, when I was
Mhm.
comparing the two. I assume they're both the 3.6, but they don't say. But the JKU Sport was 4,075 pounds. The JLU Sport was 4,167 pounds. So it went
So
up in weight.
yeah, about 100 pounds, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Again, I don't know what else is in there. I know, for example, that the JL has like an auxiliary battery. It's got
Oh,
like a
yeah, the
secondary
little
battery that's just for
the
starting and stopping
start-stop
or something.
battery,
Yeah.
which
Uh,
is a people hate it.
yeah.
It
But
is
and
the
batteries aren't
worst.
light was my point, right?
Yeah, and they're expensive to replace those little dinky batteries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonder if my new truck has one. Probably. Is that what makes the start stop so
Yeah.
reliable?
Um, oh, yeah, video says JL has beefier axles than the JK, and the JL transmission may be heavier.
Okay. I don't know
So
what transmission the JL has in it.
so they probably like, "Oh my goodness, look at how heavy this is," and they're like, "We gotta figure out how to take some weight off of it," and that's
Could be.
probably where the hood and all that. I wonder how the hood flutter is then on the JL compared to the JK, since it is lighter, if that would make it worse?
It's lighter, but I know we said aluminum isn't as strong, but I do. I get this feeling that aluminum is more resistant to like that
Mhm.
flexibility that you see in steel, in thin steel. Maybe I'm wrong, but it might be that that actually helped combat the hood flutter. I don't know.
Oh, well, they do in the jail too. They have that little vent behind the fender that apparently is supposed to help with that.
Oh, right. Yeah, that was supposed to
Yeah.
help with that too.
Yeah.
JL has an
S
8-speed auto. JK has a 5-speed auto. That is true. That is true. And I guess that would make it more expensive or more
Mhm.
heavy.
If heavy, yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe they saved 100 pounds on the hood and the doors, and then gained 100 pounds or 100, 200 pounds
Right,
on the axles and
on the other
transmission.
stuff, yeah. So it's
I
kind
mean,
of like
the trade-off is marginal. 100 pounds of rolling weight, probably not a big deal when it comes to fuel efficiency. If it was 500 pounds heavier, that might be a problem.
mhm.
So
So,
at any rate,
what is your preference, like, if you were to get skid plates?
well, so
Or if
here's
you
here's we have a couple categories of things that vehicles may include from the factory that are aluminum, and then we have a couple categories of things that you might be adding to the vehicle that are either aluminum or steel. And as far as things that come with the vehicle, you might get body panels. We've already talked quite a bit about that are aluminum. We were talking when we were planning the show. The tailgate on the new truck, I didn't look up whether it's aluminum or not, but I'd be surprised if it's not. The thing is feather light.
mhm.
When I opened, I'm used to my dad's old '85 Chevy pickup. That's what I learned to drive on. That thing, it probably had an 80-pound tailgate. I don't know. It was heavy. This one, you can open and close it with one finger.
Wow,
That's
yeah.
how light it is. Um, but a lot of vehicles, right? If they're not using aluminum, they could be using like fiberglass, right? There's a lot of vehicles today that use fiberglass. Usually, more rugged vehicles like pickup trucks aren't using fiberglass, but I hope my tailgate's not fiberglass. That could be too. I doubt that.
We'll have to figure that one out.
It feels like it's some kind of a metal, but it's
Mhm.
definitely not heavy. Um, so anyway, the thing, and I watched a video. I forget what the conclusion was, but the Ford F-150 was one of the first trucks that I can remember where they were talking about, oh, let's make the bed out of aluminum because the bed is like big and heavy and
Mhm.
they're trying to save weight. And one of these not off-road, automotive YouTube channels had gotten their hands on an aluminum bed F2 or F-150 and they hit it with a sledgehammer,
Oh.
the side of the bed. The whole point was to damage it so that they could take it to the body shop and see what it cost to fix. I forget what the outcome was. This would be a lot better story if I could remember what the outcome was.
Yeah.
But the idea was the premise was that aluminum is harder to fix, therefore it's going to be more expensive to fix. A sledgehammer sized dent in the side of your aluminum bed. Um, so I don't know if anybody's in the chat that remembers the outcome of that. But that's one thing I've heard, that fixing aluminum is more expensive. So aluminum body panels can bite you later
Mhm.
um, with repair. However, they're not going to rust like your steel ones do. Um, you don't have to worry about the paint. If the paint scratches, it'll look like hell, but it's not going to rust through. Like, I mean, my LJ has a bunch of rust spots on it that I have to keep up on.
Oh, same
Otherwise, it starts
here.
to rust through the body. I've already got a hole or two through the body that I've had to sandblast down and fill in with body putty. Right. So that's a thing you won't have to worry about if
Oh,
they're aluminum.
that's, like, tedious work when you do that.
It is.
Tedious.
Oh yeah, especially if you're sanding it by hand.
Yeah.
Like, I lucked out. My dad at some point had gotten himself not a expensive one, but a small home sized sandblaster that whenever I have a decent sized rust spot, I hit it with the sandblaster, and that just takes all the pitting and stuff away.
Mhm.
And then of course you've got to sand it all down and fill it nice if you want it to look nice.
And you
So
have to
that's the
have
tedious part.
primer it too, and
Yep.
then the paint. Here,
Yep.
I just, this is just one example, cited a repair estimate, for an aluminum truck body, $8,400 compared to a similar repair on a steel truck at 2,500.
Well, there you go.
Um, and that I mean, I don't know if it was the
That's one
same
case.
type. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it
Right.
who knows if it was the exact same type of,
Yeah.
you know, um,
And that
dent and
durability,
ding.
I remember
Yeah,
there was a whole bunch of truck wars back and forth between Chevy and Ford about the steel bed versus the aluminum bed, about, the inside of the bed, where you're
right.
gonna be loading things, you're gonna be filling it with gravel or, whatever, the things you do with a truck bed, right? And how well does the aluminum hold up versus the steel? And all I really saw about that was the marketing FUD that you saw going back and forth. I don't know how that ever actually panned out. If
And
if
if you do have a truck bed, I highly, highly recommend getting a spray-on bed liner, not the Rhino roll-on liner. We do this at TNT, and that bed liner is amazing. Um, and I would recommend not getting the factory one because the factory just like zooms those trucks in and sprays. They don't do the needed prep so that bed liner adheres to your truck bed. And
I'm
that will improve your truck bed immensely. Is yours bed lined?
it does not have any liner in it, and
Uh-huh.
so I am in the market for something to line the truck bed with, because I even just putting a toolbox in the back of it, like
Yes,
the week
you're gonna
after I got it,
start. Yep.
had put some scuffs in the paint, and it's a truck bed, right? I'm not going to be too worried about the paint in the
Right.
truck bed,
You
but
don't
it
want it
is
to start
nice paint,
rusting.
right? And
Yes.
I really don't want to nick it all up because it's paint, and I feel like you shouldn't do that.
Well, I can
But
give you a discount if
if I
you
come out to Wyoming,
yeah, yeah. I'll have to
but
look around to see. We use mil-spec bed liner.
so here's
Um,
my question, and this isn't just for
yep.
you, it's for the audience, because I've been milling this around in my head. You've got a couple options when it comes to truck bed lining. There's like the Rhino stuff, there's roll-on stuff you can do yourself, there's spray-on stuff you can have professionally done, there's spray-on stuff you can do yourself, and then there's drop-in plastic liners.
No, don't do that.
The drop-in plastic ones are no good?
No,
In my
no.
head, I'm thinking these are then
Moisture will get
replaceable.
Yeah, moisture will get in there, and we've seen people where the moisture's got in between the plastic liner and the bed, and
Okay.
I would stay away from it if I were you. I don't know, I feel like the professional spray on bed liner is the best, and especially since you have a newer truck, well, mil-spec lifetime guarantees it. If it starts to peel or bubble, they are going to you go back to where you got it and they're going to fix those spots, which you're not going to see that unless whoever did it didn't do a good enough job prepping. Because you got to kind of scuff up that truck bed to
Yeah.
get that bed liner to adhere.
I
I,
did
I just think it looks beautiful when you do my guy does it great and it looks awesome.
They
I'll have
they
to
do
send you
look
some
good. I
pictures. Yeah.
When we were looking for trucks, I did see a number of them that had spray-in bed liners from GM, right?
Mhm.
Which you're saying maybe aren't the greatest, but they do look nice.
Yeah.
They do put a nice finish to the inside of that bed.
We had a guy bring in his brand new Ford truck that had the spray in from the factory and it was starting to peel in certain spots. And so Tyler went in and he started because you got to take all of the bed liner off before you spray again.
Yeah.
Typically, you
Yep.
can, sand it down and get it to blend, but that's so much work. But he started peeling that off and it came off in one big sheet.
Wow.
It should never do that.
Well, that obviously that was Ford. I mean, Ford doesn't do
Right.
anything right.
Right. So my recommendation, Nate, is a professional, like,
Yeah.
mil spec,
I did in the YJ that I had, I did a Herculiner
Yep.
roll on do it yourself, but that's not a truck bed, right? It doesn't see as nearly the abuse as a truck bed.
Right.
So I wasn't worried about it. And
Correct.
that did wear off over time. Places where it had a lot of contact with things, like
Right.
most notably right under the gas pedal where your heel rests, that slowly wore off over
Yeah.
time. And I put it on extra thick underneath there. But anyway, my point was that I'm familiar with the process, because you have to scuff up the whole bed,
Yep.
whole in this case the whole inside of the Jeep, before I was able to put down the bed liner. I never did one in the LJ. I always kind of thought I should, but never got around to it.
Oh my gosh, there's looks like a dealer right north. of Ravine, north of Pine Grove.
Okay.
Gary's Auto Body in Pine Grove, Pennsylvania, right there near Roush Creek
Look at
on
that.
Molly's Town Road. What are the odds?
Yeah.
Because you're just a little bit north of there, right?
Yeah, that wouldn't be that far for me.
Yeah, that's the closest one to you.
I know
Gary's.
we're getting off topic here.
Yeah,
Now I'm
sorry.
curious because it is definitely on my list of things I want to get
Yeah,
done to the truck. That and a
but
cover
they.
for the bed and some steps and yeah.
Yeah. When you're ready for that, call me because that's what I do every day. Besides
But
my marketing, I help.
it'll be tough to get to
Yeah,
Wyoming to get it done though.
I know.
It's kind of a drive. Although if we come out for that
But
jamboree, maybe I'll just take a day and drop the truck
yeah,
off and you guys can bedline it
I
for me.
can. Yeah, for sure. We would for sure do that. But anyway, if you
Yeah.
need advice on tunnel covers, toppers, anything like that.
Yeah, I found an off-road shop not too far from me that does things like aftermarket steps and tonneau covers for the Silverado. I'm sure there's a billion of them because the
Yeah,
Silverado is a pretty common truck.
right,
But when I'm ready, I was going to contact them and see what kind of deal they can give me.
right.
To be honest, I'm almost tempted to build some steps for it because,
Oh yeah.
like, I think that would be a fun project. But on the other hand, I know the skills of that particular fabricator, and I don't know if he's up to the task or not.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, um, I probably wouldn't make them aluminum because I don't have the skills to weld
Right.
aluminum, which is on point here, right? Um, all right, so we talked
We
about
got a
body
little
panels.
off topic there. We
Whatever.
gotta
It's a
yeah.
podcast. That's what
But
they're for.
yeah,
Your rabbit trail.
yeah,
Uh,
those Toyota truck guys, this was a good little thing for the Toyota truck guys.
why do Toyota trucks have aluminum body
Oh,
panels?
no, they can bedline. We gave
Oh,
them some bedliner tips. Um,
there you go. All right. So, right, we talked about the body panels. We talked about doors being easier to take on and off. The tailgate thing, right? The
right.
tailgate's lighter, easier to open and close, possibly more expensive to repair. Um, Armor is kind of the next topic, right?
Yeah.
Armor, steel armor, especially on something like a Jeep, where it's very common that you end up cladding the whole body in armor, right? You know, there's those armor panels that you can put on the rear corner panels and underneath the doors and all that stuff, right? That gets heavy fast. I don't know.
Yep.
Does TNT do corner panels?
We do corner armor. Yeah, we do corner and we
Any idea
do
what they weigh in steel?
oh, we
They
do
can't be light.
aluminum. We do
Okay,
aluminum.
they're all aluminum.
They do aluminum.
I know a lot of places you can get them one way or the other, right? You can opt for aluminum if you want to save the weight, or you can save some money but spend the weight and get them in
Right.
steel. So I didn't know if you did them both ways, but they can't be light steel. Uh,
Oh, no, they would be
I
super
wouldn't be
heavy.
surprised if they were 100 pounds.
And just shipping them would be um pretty expensive.
Yeah, yeah. So the downside, of course, to aluminum would be if it takes a big enough hit, it could tear, could crack,
Mhm.
or even a big enough dent. Even if it does dent, it's harder to pound it back out than it would be with steel.
Right.
But they're so much lighter. And if you do, you have to worry about the steel and the aluminum interacting between the body and the aluminum panel. I guess with the paint, you wouldn't have to worry about it.
Right. Right.
So,
That's
because
never been anything I've ever heard them talking about.
I know it's a big problem with stuff like that when dirt and mud gets behind the panel, but that would
Right.
happen with aluminum or steel, right? Where it gets in
Correct.
there and then it starts to
Right.
corrode the body underneath. You
Right.
see these older TJs and YJs where it's like, oh, we're going to take off the corner guards and repaint them or whatever. You pull them off and like the body underneath is gone because it's just rusted to nothing.
Right.
It's like, oh, the corner guard is
No,
all
yeah.
that was left.
Crazy.
So, but yeah, that skid plates, rocker guards, you could save a lot of weight with aluminum,
Yeah.
but you're gonna have to make them thicker. And we talked about more difficult to repair. Not only, you know, the hammering out dents and the tearing problem, but or cracking, I should say, but welding it on the trail is a lot harder.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe that's not so important with body armor, But if you're talking about a wheel, or if you're talking about some kind of a drivetrain component, something you need to get back home with, it's harder to fix on the trail because usually an onboard welder will be a stick welder, and
Right,
those
and that's
generally don't work with aluminum. They work with
no,
steel. Now, I'm not a pro welder. Maybe there's some way to weld aluminum with stick, but as far as I understand, that's
I don't
generally
think
either with a
so,
spool
yeah.
gun or with TIG, right?
Yep,
You're not going to have a TIG welder in the back of your Jeep. Somebody probably does,
right.
but
There's always that guy.
not nearly as common. So I guess that's just a thing you got to think about when you're deciding what's going to be steel and what's going to be aluminum. And for me, this is wheels. Wheels is a big deal. I usually use steel wheels. I've never significantly. Well, no, I lie. I have damaged steel wheels on the trail, and every time I have, I've been able to to hammer them back out. But on the other hand, I wheel with lots of folks, and of course, with the Jamboree, I've seen lots of folks wheel on aluminum wheels,
Mhm.
and I've never really seen one get cracked on the trail. That's not to say it can't happen, but that was always the argument I heard against aluminum wheels. Oh, what if it cracks? How do you fix it? You can't
Right.
fix it. You can't hammer it back out. Oh, this and that.
Oh, my wheels are so beat up and they have so much rock rash.
Mine too.
Yeah. And then actually when we were on the Rubicon Trail, we had to make a little stop because we had to do some trail fixing, and I think it's in one of my videos, but we had to bang the wheel of one of the little yellow Jeep. We had to It got all damaged, and we had to, like, sit there and bang it and bang it and bang it
Hmm.
to get it put back into place.
Yeah,
So
I've the steel wheels that are on the LJ have been through hell. I
mhm,
mean, I have really beat them up. Um, there have been cases where the beads have unseated or they haven't been seated well enough because the rim is deformed. And
right.
every time it's happened, I've been able to fix them. Usually, I fix them at home in the shop. I just put on the spare and then get home. But you could do it on the trail if you really wanted to. With the aluminum wheels, I don't know. Again, I haven't seen it happen, but that's the story. That's what everybody tells you. "Oh, if that happens, you're stuck. You can't fix
Mhm.
it on the trail." So, I don't know, maybe if anybody out there has some experience with that. Have you ever seen an aluminum wheel fail on the trail? I'm
The only
asking you.
the only wheel I've seen fail is that one,
Yeah.
the steel wheel, but we fixed it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I did
so
see somebody with an aluminum, tie rod.
ooh.
Um, and that's not that uncommon. I've seen them plenty, but, this guy was at Roush Creek. He was wheeling it, and, of course, the alternative is steel, right? Well, if you like lay your tie rod on a rock and it's steel, it'll bend, right? Sometimes it'll go back to normal. Usually it'll end up in a frowny face, right? And then you got to fix your tie rod. Aluminum more commonly will sort of flex and then flex back down again,
Oh,
right?
interesting, yeah.
Which is good, right? However, this guy found the limit.
Oh, did it
he
crack?
it went too far and it just shattered, right? So he had no more tie rod. He couldn't fix it. Couldn't fix it on the trail because it had shattered. I mean, it was destroyed. He ended up having to have the thing towed out and put on a trailer to get it out of there. So you know, again, how how likely are you to damage the thing that you're making out of aluminum? And if you do damage it, what's the downside? If it's body armor and it's dented and banged up, big deal. You can still drive out with that. If it's your tie rod, eh.
Right. And I think it goes to what you're doing. Are
Yeah,
you doing extreme rock crawling? Are you desert racing? Are you just overlanding and you have all that heavy gear and so you want a little bit of protection, so aluminum body armor would be better. Like anything when you're off-roading, it depends on what you're using your vehicle for.
right.
And so you gotta take all that into consideration. And just because Johnny down the street says, "Oh, you need to do this, that, and the other," well, Johnny wheels does this kind of wheeling, but you're not going to do that kind of wheeling. So, you need to take into consideration what you're doing with your vehicle and what works best for you. So,
Yep. And to be honest, I think that's about all we had for
yeah, I
today
was
as
going to
far as
say,
aluminum versus steel.
uh-huh.
Folks, if you've got opinions on aluminum versus steel, or if you think we missed something that's really pertinent to the conversation, please reach out. Let us know. We'll talk about it on our next show.
And we definitely appreciate everyone tuning in.
Yep.
Um, like I said, if you're watching on Jeep Mama's YouTube channel or SWB Crawler's YouTube channel, go over to Off-Road Insiders podcast and click the little red subscribe button. We're trying to build our viewership there on YouTube. And of course, if you are a podcast listener, we are on all the podcast platforms out there.
Yep.
You
And
can
if you
find
can't
us
find
there.
us on a whatever platform you like to use, let us know and we'll figure out how to get ourselves listed there. But yeah, we should be on all the major ones. And with that, any last words for the folks, Tammy?
Um, no, you caught me off guard. Whoa, I wasn't ready for that
I
one.
guess that was your last words.
Yeah, those were my
Well,
last words.
I'll just repeat it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. If you want to find us on socials, you should look up the Off Road Insiders podcast. We are generally at Off Road Insiders, like wherever you'd look for us. I think Instagram and Facebook.
Hmm.
Of course, YouTube, or just go to offroadinsiders.com to find us wherever it is that we have things listed. Or, just follow the show through our website instead of through all these other third parties. And yeah, I think that's it. Folks, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.
Have a great week.